we'll start with Kirtan Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji's Mataji. Kirtan Pardhamu, we'll try to lead follow. We'll do two lines, Mataji. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Damodararati Vathana Veshe Hari Nishkuta Vrindavitileshe Damodararati Vathana Veshe Hari Nishkuta Vrindavitileshe Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Drishamanudadi Navashashilekhe Lalita Sakhi Gunaramita Vishakhe Drishamanudadi Navashashilekhe Lalita Sakhi Gunaramita Vishakhe Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Karuna Gurumai Karuna Bharite Sanaka Sanatana Varnita Charite Karuna Gurumai Karuna Bharite Sanaka Sanatana Varnita Charite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna. So let us try to read the meanings. I don't have the English translation, so I'm going to read the Telugu translation. O Radha, Madhav Priya, గోకుల తరుణులచే అనగా కన్యలచే పూజింపబడే నీకు జయము జయము. నీ పట్ల దామోదరునికి ప్రేమాకర్షణ పెరిగే విధముగా వస్త్రాధరణ చేసుకుంటావు. నీవు శ్రీహరికి ప్రియమైన బృందావనమునకు రాణివి. నీవు వృషభాను రాజు అనే సముద్రము నుండి ఉదయించిన నవచంద్ర కాంతిరేఖ. నీవు లలితాదేవి సఖివి. శ్రీకృష్ణుని పట్ల నీకు గల ప్రేమ, సరళత్వము మరియు శ్రద్ధ అనే దివ్య గుణముల వలన విశాఖాదేవిని నీ సఖిగా చేసుకుంది. నీవు కరుణామూర్తి. నీ దివ్య గుణములో సనక సనాతనుల వంటి మహాముని చే వర్ణింపబడి. ఓ రాధ, నా యందు దయ చూపు. హరే కృష్ణ. Here Sri Rupa Goswami, this is written by Srila Rupa Goswami in Saptamala, where he is praising, he's praying and praising Radharani's qualities, and then he's surrendering to Radharani, asking to have mercy on him, because great people like Sanaka Sanatan also praised her for the mercy of Lord. Hare Krishna. So let's start with Mangalacharna prayers, and then start.
ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा तदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुता पदकमलं श्रीगुरु वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजना सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पदान् सहगणा ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचना गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्तुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे
हरे रामा राम राम हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भगवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। नमः पंकजनाभाय नमः पंकजमालिने नमः पंकजनेत्राय नमस्ते पंकजांग्रे। ब्राह्मण्याय देवाय गो ब्राह्मणाय हिताय च जगद्हिताय कृष्णाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमो ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। Let's quickly do Shastra prayers. चेतोदर्पणमार्जनं भवमहाधावाग्निर्वापणं श्रेयःतैरवचन्द्रिका वितरणं विद्यावदुजीवनम् आनन्दाम्बुधिवर्धनं प्रतिपदं पूर्णामृतस्वादनं सर्वात्मा स्नपनं परं विजयते श्रीकृष्ण संकीर्तनं। नाम्नामकारी बहुधा निज सर्वशक्ति तत्रार्पिता नियमित स्मरणेन कालः। एतादृशी तव कृपा भगवान् दुर्दैवम् ईदृशम् इह जनिननुरागः। तृणादपि सुनीचेन तरोरपि सहिष्णुना अमानीना मानदेन कीर्तनीय सदा हरि। न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वा जगदीश कामये। जन्मनि जन्मनीश्वरे भवतद्भक्तिरहैतुकी त्वयि ऐनं तनुज किङ्करं पतिता मां विशने भवाम्बुधौ। कृपया तव पाद पंकज स्थित धूलि सदृशं विचिन्तया नयनं गलदश्रुधारया वदनं गद्गदरुधाय गिरा। पुलकैर्निचितं वपुः कदा तव नाम गृहनिष्यति युगायितं निमिषेण चक्षुषा प्रव्रशायितं शून्यायितं जगत् सर्वं गोविन्द विरहेण मे। आश्लिष्य वा पादरतं पिनास्तु माम् आदर्शनान् मर्महतं करोतु वा यथा तथा वा विदधातु लम्पटो मत्प्राणपराः। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, Prabhuji Mataji, how is everybody? So Lilananda Prabhuji had to take some time, had to take care of things at home. His father was not feeling well last night, but as of this morning, things seem to be a little more stable. So last night he suddenly, yesterday I was having one of real stressful days, basically with work and everything. And I was about to sleep, around at 10:15. And at that point of time, Lilananda Prabhuji called and said, he is not in a position to take this morning class, and if you can handle this class. Because this Ekadashi said we don't want this tradition, whatever we said, to be lost. So I said, definitely, Prabhu, I will take. So then I was thinking on myself, what should be the topic for discussion. So one side I was so stressful, and I was almost thinking what is going on, basically, how come I'm not able to handle with so many things going on, especially with work and with the assignments, with Bhakti Shastri classes, and especially yesterday I had almost between 9 in the morning to 9 in the evening, I had about 12 meetings. So at that point of time, when I got this call, I thought really I should make use of this class and see what I can do. That appeared to me more like a second chance, and I thought we'll talk a little bit about second chance today. We all know Ajamila's story. Though we know the story, so we'll talk a little bit about Ajamila again. So we are going to discuss the first 3 chapters of 6th canto of Bhagavatam. Okay, the 6th canto of Bhagavatam, what is it called? The 6th canto of Bhagavatam, what the name of 6th canto? Can anybody tell? We talked about 6th canto a few times. Does anybody remember or know what the name of 6th canto is? Every canto has a name, right?
Prescribed duties for mankind.
Prescribed duties of mankind. Haribol, Vinila Mataji. So that's the prescribed duties of mankind. So it explains. It explains everything that a human being has to do, basically, right? If you want to go in spiritual path, then correct. When Parikshit Maharaj was asking, yes, Sukadeva Goswami is explaining what the prescribed duties of mankind, what a human being should be doing. So we have all the very interesting topics in the 6th chapter, 6th canto. The first 3 topics talk about Ajamila story. We know where Ajamila, the life Ajamila had, and how he's fallen, and yet he goes back to Vaikuntha, how the Vishnu Dutas and the Yamadutas fight. So let's discuss a little bit about that. And then we have the stories where Devendra falls down and because of his ego. So the first story we talk about is where human being has an Ajamila, the pious Ajamila has fallen down. By looking at a lusty thing. Then the second story goes where Devendra, because of his power, right? The power, due to his power, how he is fallen down. And then if you go further, you will see the sacrifice of Dadichi, but then you'll see the Trasra story again. How again, everybody gets a second chance kind of things in this book, basically. Devendra gets his second chance after killing Dhritarashtra. He repents and see, Devendra repents the first time when he is insulted his Guru Maharaj or Brahaspati, and then he takes another Guru, and then again that doesn't end up well. Then he kills him. Then he gets to Dhritarashtra story, and Dhritarashtra actually teaches him how spiritual life has to be, how one has to fall at the feet of Lord. And then Devendra feels guilty of killing Dhritarashtra, and Devendra then performs Aswamedas. Then we see Chitraketu story, where Chitraketu again, by last Saturday we discussed about Chitraketu story, where a little pride, a very little pride. So some lusty story, then the power due to, the pride due to power, and then the pride due to devotion. Chitraketu was a devotee of Sankarshana. Maybe somewhere he thought, where he and Mahashiva, or can be comparable and with a little bit of pride of his father. So what I'm trying to say is the sixth canto is very important in that aspect. Basically, you will see everybody, ones who are devotees, ones who are leading a pious life, ones who have been respected for their devotional service by God himself, falls down and then rages back up into devotional service. So the first three topics of Ajamila, we are not going to discuss more about we all know the story of Ajamila. So here we know what happened at the time of death, right? We all know the story. Ajamila calls his son Narayana. So Ajamila is a very pious man. Once he sees, once he goes out to get some firewood, and on the way he sees two people, one male and one female, in a compromising positions, and he falls in lust for her. And then he leaves all his pious activities, and then he goes after her, he marries her, and then he gets children out of her, and in the process he neglects his own wife, parents, and everybody, but he takes care of her. And at the time of death, we call it death. At this point, we call it death because his Yamadutas have come. And he's seeing the Yamadutas, and he called out the name Narayana, his son's name. So he's been calling his son Narayana. Narayana, help me with that. Narayana, get me food. Narayana, help me with water. Narayana, do that. Narayana, do this. Basically, right? So in the process, when he sees the Yamaduta-like people, then he calls help for Narayana. Narayana, what is happening here? I can see these people. And the moment he called Narayana, Vishnudutas come. Right? We all know this part of the story. So now, what is this Narayana different from, or why is this Narayana so much important? Right? That's the point of discussion. So, if we look at our own names today, we don't really have names of Lord in our names. If you look at a couple of generations ago, they would all have, everybody. I was doing last week, a couple of months ago, I was doing a small, I was asked to speak a little bit to our people in Green Grace on an occasion. What was that occasion? I don't remember. Where we have felicitated all the elderly people and we gave them Ramayana books basically on Ugadi Day. So as we're felicitating everybody, we realized out of 25 people, 20 people had name like again Krishnadasa, Krishna Prasada, or Jagannatha, Ramakrishna, Ramaprasad, Narayana Kriti, something like that. So everybody, almost 80% of their names are names of God. Today we don't have that. Probably our generation has lost, at least my generation has lost. And today we don't have at least our children's names, so many names of God's name. Unless we start coming into Vaishnava, Krishna consciousness very early in years, I don't think now the younger generation probably who are in Krishna consciousness have that opportunity of calling their children the names of God. So the name of God is not different from the name of the God himself, right? We all know that. So when he called Narayana, what happened? Probably that's the reason why we all should worry and work for initiation. When we all have a name that is again giving us a second chance to name ourselves something closer to God, or So when we chant God's name. And here Ajamila called himself Narayana, his son Narayana. So what is the difference between these two chantings, right? What is the difference between these two names? So we all if we all can think when we're looking at Ajamila's story, maybe at the end of my life, I will be able to say Narayana and God will come. But will it happen? Is it easy to chant? Even if we remember it to call the name, will it come? Are we able to say that name Narayana at the end of our life, following or not offensing any of these things? See, 10 offenses of holy name is what we read. See, to blaspheme the devotee who has dedicated their lives for propagating holy name of the Lord. To consider, see, why I'm reading all these 10 offenses is, in the name Narayana, that Ajamila called his son. He has not. He has followed all these 10 principles basically. He has not all these 10 offenses of, sorry, he did not violate any of these 10 offenses. See, you should understand that in his name of calling him the word Narayana, there is so much of purity in the word. In calling so, he has not disobeyed any of the spiritual masters. He has not blasphemed any Vedic scriptures. So in the sense, he hasn't called the word Narayana, I'm only calling my son and not Lord. No, he just uttered the word Narayana. To give some mundane interpretation to holy name. He never had a mundane interpretation to his the holy name of Narayana, though he called it to intend to call his son, but he understands the name Narayana. He named his son Narayana because he wanted his son to be called Narayana after the god, right? To consider chanting of Hare Krishna, he understands all these principles, right? He to instruct faithless persons. So bottom line is, in his word called Narayana, he has all the 10 he's respecting all the 10 principles that the Vaishnava is following. So that's the reason why the Yamadutas, and before the Yamadutas can take him away, before taking the clutches, then the Vishnudutas come and cut those clutches, and then there is a conversation between Yamadutas and Vishnudutas. So we're not going to talk so much about that, but as a story, we'll keep moving forward. Then Yamadutas and Vishnudutas talk to each other, and then Ajamila realizes what is happening, right? Again, we'll talk a little bit of what happened in Ajamila when he was looking at this thing of male female. So here, the 10 stages of Cupid. These are mentioned again in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, where we can see how the attraction with the eye starts and takes us to the death. So anything that we see, how our asakti starts with, right? Chakshuraka, attraction through the eyes. Then what happens once we start looking at how senses work? Once we start looking at a thing, then the intense attachment starts to happen in the mind. Then once the intense attachment happens, then we'll start working, determination will happen. So this happens to anything. Today, you don't have to look at this lusty thing of Ajamala. If you look at as you're traveling, if you look at a Mercedes Benz or something, and if you fall for it, you know what falling for it means. Your eyes are looking at it and the mind is thinking about it. And then you start to look at it with a determination. And then once the determination takes your mind, then you'll start having sleepless nights. Once you have sleepless nights, so you'll become emancipated to it, to higher interest in it starts to happen. And once you get a higher interest in it, your interest in other things will start to go away. So disinterest in external things will start happening, other things will happen. And after that, if you're still not able to get hold of the thing that you want to possess, what happens? You become shameless about doing anything for it. And then that shameless will result into a madness state, and that madness state becomes, you will become muricha, becoming stunned about what you are doing. And murcha. Then you'll get into a murcha state where because of the madness will take you to a state where yourself, your mind is beyond your own control, basically, and that is carried to death. You see what happens? This is how our mind works. This is how our mind works when you put your focus on an object, when you start looking at anything. Then, but again, here what we should understand is, we understood the state of mind, the way it works. Now, if you take the same 10 steps, and put spirituality in it, and if you are attracted to God, if you're attracted to the Murti in the temple, then the attraction starts with your eyes, then it increases your attachment in your mind, and then you become determined to get into devotional service, so much so that you should feel sleepless about it, and so much so that you should feel disinterested about anything, so much so that you will feel you don't have to feel ashamed of doing anything for God, anything for devotional service, and so much so that you have to become you should get into a state of madness, and then that should take to a point where your mind is beyond your control, to the death, if you can carry that to death. If you look at the stories of Gopikas, this is what happens in their life. If you look at so everybody has this potential. Everybody has this potential to get to that point, but it's just that where we are putting our own mental security to get into those points. You see my point, Prabhuji and Matajis? If you take that, if you take the same 10 steps towards a materialistic object, then that's where you are going. If you take the same 10 steps into a devotional service aspect, then that's where it will lead you to. So these are the 10 steps that Ajamala unfortunately took it to to satisfy his lust. Then again, when Ajamala realized what the holy name can do, then he becomes, once we start chanting the holy name with the understanding the 10 offenses to holy name properly, then it will give us, each time we talk about Harinama, each time you utter a Harinama, it gives you the perfect atonement, and it attracts you to a lot, it attracts Lord's attention, then it awakens bhakti. And these are all different shlokas that are in the first chapter that talks about the importance of holy name and how it affects. So we talked about this, and then we'll go briefly into second chapter, right? In the second chapter. So again, here we have the discussion between Vishnudutas and Yamadutas. This is the first time Yamadutas are seeing Vishnudutas actually. So they're not understanding who these people are. Why have they come? Why are they not letting them do their job? So we'll again see the responses to the conversation between Yamadutas and Yamadharmaraja. That's where we are going to spend most of our time today. So, but then we are just seeing the points that are leading to that's seeing the points of the story that leading to that point. So then Vishnudutas are not allowing Yamadutas to do their duties, and Vishnudutas are a lot more powerful compared to Yamadutas. Basically, Yamadutas are only doing what they are asked to. Vishnudutas at that point of time have almost all the powers like Mahavishnu themselves, because they are coming from Vaikuntha Loka. So at that point of time, Ajamila looks at what do you call it, the Vishnudutas, and he looks at the Yamadutas. He's still on his deathbed. At that point, he makes a determination. That I am now going to surrender my life to the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. So at that point, the Vishnudutas have let him, then they leave the place. Ajamala is not dead at this point. And with that determination, he leaves to Haridwar, and then he spends the rest of his life there. And at the point of death again, then that's when the Vishnudutas come and take them with him. The first time they have not come with the Pushpak Vimanam. It's the second time that they have come with the Pushpak Vimanam. That's the second chance we are talking about. There is a 12-year lag between the point when Ajamila originally occurs the word Narayana on the deathbed versus actually he dies. Those 12 years, he spends his time, and that's when we'll see some of the shlokas, right? Which shloka we're talking about? 35th shloka. Sorry, I have not opened this thing. I forgot to open this. Going to read 35th shloka. Okay. This is more Ajamila's repentance of his own life, basically. Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Text 35. Soham tatha yatishyami yata chittendriyani laha yathana bhuya atmanam andhe tamasi majjaye. Translation: I am such a sinful person, but since I have now gotten this opportunity, I must completely control my mind, life, and senses, and always engage in devotional service so that I may not fall again into the deep darkness and ignorance of material life.
Hare Krishna. So this is the second chance we are talking about. I'm such a sinful person, but since I have now gotten this opportunity, he's given the second opportunity of dedicating his life in the devotion service. I must completely control my mind, life and senses and always engage in devotional service, so that I may not fall again into the deep darkness and ignorance of material life. So he understood what his mistake is. He understood where he has fallen, and then he's making use of his second chance with the determination. Every one of us should have the determination. We are looking into Srila Prabhupada's purport. We have been elevated to an exalted position by the mercy of Krishna and the spiritual master. And if we remember that this is a great opportunity and pray to Krishna that we will not fall again, our lives will be successful. We are not guaranteed that each one of us will get a second chance. We just have to make use of the first chance. That's the reason why these Bhagavata stories should help us, right? If not, what is the point? Bhagavata stories are not here to tell us, oh yeah, you'll get a second chance, so let's do what we want. No, that's not what it is. It is for us to realize that how these people were given a second chance and they have made use of that second chance, how they made use of their chance, and how determined they have become. So every one of us should have this determination, the determination that Ajamila is carrying. We have been elevated to an exalted position by the mercy of Krishna and the spiritual master. If not for the mercy of Krishna, and if not for the mercy of the spiritual master, none of us would have been here where we are. None of us would have this opportunity of understanding the importance of chanting holy names with the attention we should be chanting. And if we remember that this is a great opportunity and pray to Krishna that we will not fall again, our lives will be successful. Hare Krishna. We'll try to read one more translation.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Ayya, Prabhuji.
Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, this itself is a second chance. This is not the first chance, at least for me.
Tell me,
Whatever
Prabhuji.
I have been all this 25 years of my life, completely sinful, completely ignorant, and in so much miseries. But coming in association of Srila Prabhupada and his devotees, with this itself is a second chance. But the problem is, still I'm not so serious. The way what we can say, the graveness Ajamila is having in his second chance, I'm not having in my second chance. I still feel that, okay, maybe there is some enjoyment other than Krishna, and I want to enjoy it. So how to take this up? It's more miserable.
So that's the next sloka of Ajamila. Because of identifying oneself with the body, one is subject to desires of sense gratification. And thus one engages in many different types of pious and impious actions. That is what constitutes material bondage. Now I should disentangle myself from the material bondage which has been caused by the Supreme Personality of Godhead's illusionary energy in the form of a woman. Being a most fallen soul, I was victimized by the illusionary energy and have become like a dancing dog led around by a woman's hand. Now I shall give up all lusty desires and free myself from this illusion. I shall become a merciful, well-wishing friend to all the living entities and always absorb myself in Krishna consciousness. That's the determination in which Ajamila is moving forward, basically. So again, like our entanglement doesn't have to be with the same kind of entanglement Ajamila is going through, but definitely we have ourselves entangled with a lot other materialistic sense gratification activities, basically. So does that mean, Prabhuji, Prabhuji, does not mean that you have to totally disentangle ourselves and disengage ourselves and lead a sannyasi life, basically, right? So that's what I keep saying also to in our classes. So that's what Bhagavad Gita should give us. Being able to do all our materialistic duties and still be unattached and still be in that Krishna consciousness mindset all through while doing our materialistic activities. I often people keep asking, how do you balance those things? So I don't like to use the word balance because there's nothing like balancing two things. It is more like how you merge those two things, how you engage one in another basically. So it's not like, again, I told that in one of the sessions. So if you're trying to balance, you are actually you're leading a split life, basically. That's not possible, basically. You have to be, in higher Krishna consciousness when you are not in association. You have to be in higher Krishna consciousness when you're actually doing your materialistic activities. When in office, you have to be really in Krishna consciousness. When in office, when you're making those materialistic decisions, is when you need Krishna support more than when you're sitting in a prayer hall or when you're sitting in a satsang, basically. That's what I always think. It is those times that when you are driving, going back to the same example, when I'm looking at a Mercedes Benz overtaking me, that's when I need Krishna support more and say, boss, it's not yours. This is not where you want to throw your mind yet. You see what I'm saying, Prabhuji? And that's going to happen. That's going to happen only when you're able to not balance, but merge those two things. Right, Ayya Prabhuji? Does that?
Yes, Prabhuji, that's correct. But how do you get to the stage of merging those things? How can you get so much involved in Krishna consciousness?
That's when you have to understand. That's when you understand exactly the path that Arjuna has traveled, Prabhu, in the whole Bhagavad Gita process, in the whole 700 chapters, 700 slokas. For me, again, when I read Bhagavad Gita, I feel like, the feeling, the path that Arjuna walked through is more important to me to understand Krishna. Otherwise, understanding Krishna and Krishna stories is a lot easier. Only when you are able to fit into those shoes of Arjuna, you can get into that 100% of devotional mood, basically. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen with one-time reading of Bhagavad Gita. It has to happen. It has to happen. That's the only alternative, basically. There's no other alternative. So that can happen with two things. One is towards attraction with Krishna, and then start not losing your attraction to material objects, losing your attraction to material sense gratification, and yet being involved with the material activities. As long as you are in the materialistic world, you have to do your prescribed duties. There's no alternative. See, Prabhu, what you're asking is exactly what the problem is, really. So if you're expecting a silver bullet answer from me, you're not going to get, because I'm not in that state of place where I can give that silver bulleted answer, basically. But Prabhu, it's easier to understand philosophy. It's easier to understand God. It's easier to see, again, the whole philosophy of whole Prabhupada purpose. So everywhere it talks about only one thing, that transcendental nature of life, basically. In the materialistic world, with effort, with little effort, with the help of Guru, with the help of devotees, with the help of Vaishnavas, it's easier to even see the transcendental nature of divinity, divine life in materialistic world. But to stay in that state of mind continuously is the most difficult task. That's the most difficult task. Understanding, even seeing the glimpse of what because if you have done your 16 rounds wonderfully that day, you can see the difference, basically. That transcendental divine feeling, that state of mind comes, the decisions you make after that, the discussions you are having with your own mind for that day will be different. But to stay in that consciousness, not getting attracted, as I said, like, when I see something, your mind tries to follow that. Once your mind tries to follow that, it starts to make you unrest, and once the unrest comes, then the rest of things will become uninterested, and all these states happen. And if those things happen at a material object, that is where you need Krishna consciousness even more than any time, basically. And to withdraw your senses on your own, withdraw your sense satisfaction from the senses on your own is a very difficult task, and that's what is needed to the so-called balancing of Krishna consciousness, basically. And that can happen only with sadhana. That can only happen with but for that to happen, first you need to have the realization that Ajamala is having, basically. the realization that Ajamila is having, that I'm a fallen person. I was given a second chance now. He was lucky to get a second chance. He was lucky to get a second chance where he has encountered or he's witnessed a discussion between Yamadutas and Vishnudutas, and then he was able to realize that, this is what my life has to be. He has seen the piousness of life, and then he's fallen. So it's easier for him to get a second chance. It's easier for him to make use of the second chance. But for us, it's not that easy. For us, it's not that easy. But again, that's the reason why we have to hold on to these two things, Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. Right, Prabhu? So we whenever you get an opportunity, we just have to take control of this. I'm just going to the next sloka translation, Prabhu. Simply because I chanted the holy name of the Lord in association of devotees. Simply I chanted the holy name of Lord in the association of devotees. Who are these devotees? In the association of Vishnudutas, his mind is... See, his surrender is happening in presence of devotees. He has chanted the holy name of Narayana and Vishnudutas came, and then the surrender is happening. So the power of the surrender is so powerful because it's happening in presence of Vaishnavas. My heart is now becoming purified. Therefore, I shall not fall victim again to the false lures of material sense gratification. Now that I have become fixed in the absolute truth, henceforward, I shall not identify myself with the body. I shall give up the false conception of I and mine and fix my mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. So when the determination is happening in presence of devotees, when we'll say, like, when you are in the temple and if you have to pray to the God and you take a oath that this is what I will do, why is that more powerful than what you're doing in front of watching a television or something else? Because there you're doing it in front of devotees. There are all Vaishnavas around that. And if one Sutta Vaishnava is sitting next to you when your mind is thinking of God with so much concentration, and that blessing will help you fixate your mind into that determination. And that's what is happening here in Ajamila, because he's making this decision. This thinking process is happening right when Vishnudutas are sitting there. Because of moment's association with devotees, the Vishnudutas, Ajamila detached himself from the material conception of life with determination, thus freed from all material attraction. He immediately started for Haridwar. Hare Krishna. Ayer Prabhu, can you read this purport for me?
Hare Krishna. The word Mukta Swarvanubandha indicates that after this incident, Ajamila, not caring for his wife and children, went straight to Haridwar for further advancement in his spiritual life. Our Krishna consciousness movement now has centers in Vrindavan and Navadvip, so that those who want to live a retired life, whether they be devotees or not, can go there and with determination give up the bodily concept of life. One is welcome to live in those holy places for the rest of his life. In order to achieve the highest success by the very simple method of chanting the holy name of the Lord and by taking prasada. Thus, one may return home back to Godhead. We do not have a center in Haridwar, but Vrindavan and Sridham Mayapur are better for devotees than any other places. The Chaitanya Chandrodaya temple offers one a good opportunity to associate with devotees. Let us all take advantage of this opportunity. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Again, so here the point is, because of momentary association with devotees, the Vishnudutas, and when Ajamila is making such determination in presence of them, his determination becomes even more solidified. Basically, Ajamila detached himself from the material conception of life with determination, thus freed from all material attraction. He immediately started for Haridwar. Then 48th, in Haridwar, Ajamila took shelter at a Vishnu temple where he executed the process of Bhakti Yoga. He controlled his senses and fully applied his mind in the service of Lord. We're going to read one more sloka in this chapter before we move on to the next chapter. Sloka number 41, right? Hare Krishna, can you read this sloka, Ma?
Hare Krishna, text 41. Tato gunebhya atmanam viyujyatma samadhina yiyuje bhagavad dhamni brahmanya anubhavatmani. Word to word translation. Tataha, thereafter. Gunebhyaha, from the modes of material nature. Atmanam, the mind. Viyujya, detaching. Atma Samadhina, by being fully engaged in devotional service. Yiyuje, engaged. Bhagavad Dhamni, in the form of the Lord. Brahman, which is Parabrahman, idol worship. Anubhava Atmani, which is always thought of, beginning from the lotus feet and gradually progressing upwards. Translation. Ajamila fully engaged in devotional service. Thus, he detached his mind from the process of sense gratification and became fully absorbed in thinking of the form of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Ajamila, fully engaged in devotional service, thus he detached his mind from the process of sense gratification and became fully absorbed in thinking of on the form of Lord. Hare Krishna. So let's quickly move to the next one. So here again, Ajamila has lamentation. He regretted for what happened, and then he's aware of the situation, and then he felt gratitude. He's because of the Vishnu, he's feeling gratitude for the presence of Vishnu Dutas, and he appreciated. And then in their presence, he made the determined resolution that he will spend rest of his life with God consciousness. Again, Ajamila's resolution is control of the mind, always engage in devotional service, disengage from bondage of Maya, give up the lusty desires, free from illusion, then be merciful and become a wishing friend to all the living entities, always absorb in Krishna consciousness, not fall victim again to false lures of devotion, this thing. And then no more bodily identification, give up false conception of I and me, and then fix everything in at lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So these are the elements of determination things, and these are the elements of things Ajamila, as part of his resolution, he is focused on. So these are the things. Some of these things is where we should start working with, and then by the point where we are at the point of deathbed, we should get all these things into our minds, basically. Okay. Then Ajamila moves to Haridwar, and then he took shelter of Vishnu, then executes Bhakti Yoga. These are different shlokas, so all these are out. Then the 41 is what we just read, absorption thinking of Lord's form. And then the next shloka we'll see Ajamila actually sees the same Vishnu Dutas. Now, this time he gains spiritual body and he moves to Vaikuntha. So all simply by glimpse of chanting the holy name. First thing happened is he chanted in presence of Vaishnavas, Vishnu Dutas, and then he took that helped him make the determination, and that determination led him to Haridwar. And in presence of Haridwar, there he spent about 12 years in making use of his second chance, and that's he left. He chanted without faith. What will happen if we chant with faith? Ajamila's word Narayana, calling his son, there's no faith of God. But if we are doing that same chanting with faith, what kind of miracles will happen to us? He chanted while dying. What will happen to us if we are chanted while living? He called without faith the name of God, and that itself has brought him so much of determination, so much of change in his life. What happens to us if we are chanting it while living with consciousness, with 100% consciousness that we want to go back to Godhead? And with that thought, if we are calling him, how merciful God is going to be. He chanted to indicate his son. What will happen if one of us chant to indicate Lord? He just chant, just the name itself is also Lord. And that's when the Yamadutas have taken it's their responsibility to rescue him. But when we are chanting the name Narayana with the thought process that we are actually calling Mahavishnu, we are actually calling Krishna. When we are chanting Hare Krishna with the thought process of calling Lord himself, what will happen? What kind of miracles will happen? He was most sinful. What will happen to a sinless person chants? Ajamila is such a sinful person, and still his chanting has so much of power because the word itself has power. But if we are chanting without any sins, with following all the regulative principles, with following all the principles of chanting. If we are chanting, how merciful God is going to be. Hare Krishna. So we will see some of these answers in the next chapter, right? This is where Yamadutas go back to Yamadharmaraj and says, they are seeing the Vishnudutas for the first time. They tell Yamadharmaraj, what happened? This is what happened. We thought you are the biggest boss in the world, because they have not known anything beyond Yamadharmaraj. Then they're asking him, we thought you are the big boss, but the 7th shloka says, we thought you are the supreme judge, but now your orders have nothing, it's of no use. Basically, Vishnudutas cut our ropes, the ropes that we thought are very powerful. What happened? As soon as Ajamala and Narayana, 4 men arrived. Who are they? This is what Yamadutas are asking Yamadharmaraj, and then Yamadharmaraj answers these questions. So then Yamadharmaraj answers a lot of his questions where he explains. So what happens is the moment Yamadharmaraj sees his workers or his people, Yamadutas, utter the word the Narayana. The moment they utter the word Vishnuduta, he becomes very happy about it. He becomes, he starts to become very happy and wants to explain them what Narayana means. So Yamadharmaraj in the 3rd chapter, he explains that beyond him is Mahavishnu, who is the Supreme Lord. He is the Supreme Controller. He is the above all the demigods. He is the one who binds men through Vedas, basically. He's the one. He's the one who has given us the Vedas. Then every living entities can't ascertain his position. None of us, any of the living entities, cannot get into his position. So he explains the Supreme Personality of Lord, Godhead's position. And then he talks about Vishnudutas. Vishnudutas have the qualities similar to that of Lord. They are as independent of Lord himself as when they come into materialistic world. So they protect devotees. And then again, Bhagavad Dharma, then Yamadharmaraj explains about what Bhagavad Dharma is. This is what God's Dharma is. This is known only to the 12 Mahajanas. These are the people who have understood the God's Dharma. Then if we further go, Yamadharmaraj explains the glories of chanting. So we have seen Ajamala chanting without consciousness. Then what happens when we chant with consciousness? Let's hear as Yamadharmaraj says, right? So we'll go to some of the shlokas. So chapter. So we go from 22nd.
Prabhuji, I have one question in the previous purport.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
So here it is said that Ajamila has purified his heart and then he is heading to Haridwar.
Right.
We want to, like Prabhupada in that purport is talking about getting retired and then going to Sriram Mayapur or Vrindavan.
Yeah.
So by that time, we should purify our heart and then go to the Dham. Is that correct understanding, or because
No problem. No, you can go to Dham to purify the heart also. Okay, let's I'll explain what practically we can do and what practically we cannot. So today we don't have the presence of Vishnudutas to help purify our heart. That is found only in the Suddha Vaishnavas, Suddha Bhaktas. Those Suddha Bhaktas encounter we can have in Dhams. Mayapur Dham or Vrindavan Dham. If you go to any of these Kirtan Mela or any Kartik Yatra, this is what it is basically. Right? And then every time Lilananda Prabhuji keeps saying, when you are in Yatra, you have to keep your thoughts pure. Just for that reason, when you are mingling with Suddha Vaishnavas with pure thoughts, those thoughts are going to be solidified. And we are not at a state where we want to disown our families and take bhakti marg in dhams. So we have to bring some of the dham back to our own homes. You have to find the dham in the abbot's temple. You have to find the dham in your own altars. Basically, is what my thinking is, probably. Till the point where you are ready for this the post-response materialistic responsibilities, because I would not call them 100% materialistic responsibilities. Bringing up children is not 100% materialistic responsibilities. It has a transcendental aspect of it. Basically, if you don't bring them up in the way God wants you to bring them up, so that's still your responsibility. Bringing them up in the way the Shastras is explaining is your material. It's not your materialistic responsibility. It is your divine responsibility only. So in my opinion, you have to go to Dhams for that reason. Your pure-hearted thoughts should become pure resolutions when you come back, and those resolutions should lead you to do your materialistic activities, better Krishna consciousness to a point where you are done with your activities. Then you can go back to the Dham. Basically, did that explain, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, but at least for me, I see a big risk in taking that ownership. Like you said, bringing the dham into our altar or finding that dham in Abbott's temple, that stays for a very short time. And then again, since so many things does make us so comfortable, again, the same routine.
Yeah, that's the reason why you should. Yeah, the association, the ABCDs basically is what should help us there basically. Prabhu, when you visit a dham, you should have that transformation happening. When you visit a dham, the transformation has to happen, Prabhu. Otherwise, it will become another pleasure trip only. That's like when in the initial days when Lilananda Prabhuji used to say this to me, I was listening to it, that's all. I was listening to it. But once you have gone to the dham first time, second time, third time, then on the third time, fourth time, you start to see what he was meaning it in the first time, in the first place, basically. How that when you sit there and listen to the katha from Maharaj, that transformation, how that katha is now different. If you heard the same katha without that proper purity in our own mind, basically. So that transformation should help us carry it till the next time when you're needed to go back to the dham, basically. Right, Prabhu? I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking ideal situations, but basically we have to aim for ideal situation, Prabhu. Right, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, you are correct. So there is some level of improvement, but it's not up to the mark.
Right. The more you level of improvement you want to have, the more purity, with more purity you have to surrender, basically.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So which one am I? We're looking at 22nd sloka. So devotional service, beginning with chanting a holy name of Lord, is the ultimate religious principle of living entity in human society. This is what Yamadharmaraj is telling to Yamadutas. Devotional service, beginning with chanting of holy name of the Lord, is the ultimate religious principle for living entity in the human being. My dear servants, who are as good as my sons, just see how glorious is chanting of the holy name of the Lord. The greatly sinful Ajamila chanted only to call his son, not knowing that he was chanting the Lord's holy name. Nevertheless, by chanting the holy name of Lord, he remembered Narayana, and thus he was immediately saved from the rope of death. So this happens to a person who has chanted with a different intention. If what will happen to a person who is actually chants Lord, thinking that this is my last minute of chanting. Therefore, it should be understood that one is easily relieved from all sinful reactions by chanting the holy name of Lord and chanting his qualities and activities. This is the only process recommended for relief from sinful reactions. Even if one chants the holy name of Lord with improper pronunciation, he will achieve relief from material bondage if he chants without offenses. Ajamila, for example, was extremely sinful, but while dying, he merely chanted the holy name, and although calling his son, he achieved complete liberation because he remembered the name of Narayana. So again, 25th, because they're bewildered by the illusory energy of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Yajnavalkya and Jaimini and other compilers of religious scriptures cannot know the secret confidential religious system of 12 Mahajanas, they cannot understand the transcendental value of performing devotional service or chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, because their minds are attracted to ritualistic ceremonies mentioned in Vedas, especially the Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Rigveda. Their intelligence has become dull. Thus, they are busy collecting the ingredients of ritualistic ceremonies. This is not attractive. Okay, this is not the sloka I was looking for. Okay, this 26th sloka. Okay, this is 26th sloka. We'll read the sloka and then meaning Nama, right? Hare Krishna.
Text 26. Evam vimrishya sudhiyo bhagavate anante atmana vidhate khalu bhava yogam tenena dandam arhanti athayadi amisham syat patakam tad apihanti urugaya vadaha. Translation: considering all these points, therefore, intelligent men decide to solve all problems by adopting the devotional service of chanting the holy name of the Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart and who is a mine of all auspicious qualities. Such persons are not within my jurisdiction for punishment. Generally, they never commit sinful activities, but even if by mistake or because of bewilderment or illusion, they sometimes commit sinful acts, they are protected from sinful reactions because they always chant the Hare Krishna mantra.
Hare Krishna. So here, so when the Amadotas have asked him, so what are we supposed to do? What is our responsibility? And this is what Dharmaraja is saying. Such devotees, you should not touch. Who is situated? They are praying. So who are these people? Therefore, intelligent men decide to solve all problems by adopting devotional service of chanting the holy name of the Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart and who is the mine of all auspicious qualities. Such person are not within my jurisdiction of punishment. And Dharmaraj is saying, I have no jurisdiction to punish such men who are associating themselves with the God within them, the Paramatma, by chanting basically. Such persons are not within my jurisdiction for punishment. Certainly, they never commit sinful activities, but even by mistake or because of bewilderment or illusion, they sometimes commit sinful acts. They are protected from sinful reactions because they always chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna. Can somebody read this purport, Prabhuji and Mataji's?
Hare Krishna. Can I?
Venila Mataji, Hare Krishna.
In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura quotes the following verse from the prayers of Lord Brahma, Bhagavatam 10.14.29. Athapi te deva padambujadvaya prasada lesanugrahita eva hi janati tattvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya ekopi chiram vichinvan. The purport here is that even though one is very learned scholar of the Vedic Shastras, he may be completely unaware of the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his name, fame, qualities, and so forth. Whereas one who is not a great scholar can understand the position of Supreme Personality of Godhead if he somehow other becomes a pure devotee of Lord by engaging in devotional service. Therefore, this verse spoken by Amaraja says, Evam Vimrisya Sudhiya Bhagavati. Those who engage in the loving service of Lord become Sudhiya, intelligent, but this is not so of Vedic scholar who does not understand Krishna's name, fame, and qualities. A pure devotee whose intelligence is clear, he is truly thoughtful because he engages in the service of the Lord, not as a matter of show, but with love, with his mind, words, and body. Non-devotees may make a show of religion, but it is not very effective because although they ostentatiously attend a temple or a church, they are thinking of something else. Such persons are neglecting their religious duties and are punishable by Amaraja. But a devotee who commits sinful acts, which he may do unwillingly or accidentally, because of his former habits is excused. This is the value of Sankirtan movement. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. So whatever we do, once we take shelter in the Sankirtana movement, once we take shelter in chanting holy name of Godhead, holy name of Lord, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, with some devotion, with some bhakti mark, then you are keeping yourself or you're keeping Yamaraja at bay, basically you're keeping him at a distance. My dear servants, please do not approach such devotees, for they have fully surrendered to the lotus feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are equal to everyone, and their narrations are sung by demigods and the inhabitants of Siddhaloka. Please do not even go near them. They are always protected by the club of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore Lord Brahma and I, even the time and even the time factor are not competent to chastise them. Hare Krishna. Here, see again, here Yamadharmaraja is explaining to the Yamadutas to keep themselves away from what kind of people, the people who so he's saying, do not approach them, for they have fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. See, this is what the key point is, fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. They're equal to everyone, and their narrations are sung by, this is again describing the lives of Vishnu Bhaktas, basically. Please do not even go near them. They're always protected by the club of Supreme Personality of Godhead. This we have seen in Prahlada's story. We have seen in a lot of stories where the Lord takes care of their devotees just because they're totally surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, Lord Brahma and I, and even the time factor, are not competent to chastise them. None of us are competent enough to even go near them, basically. In effect, Yamaraja is warning his servants, my dear servants, despite what you may have done previously to disturb devotees, henceforward you should stop. The actions of devotees who have surrendered unto the lotus feet of Lord and who constantly chant the holy name of Lord are praised by the demigods and the residents of Siddhaloka. Those devotees are so respectful and exalted that Lord Vishnu personally protects them with the club of his hand. Therefore, regardless of what you have done this time, henceforward you should not approach the devotees. Otherwise, you will be killed by the club of Lord Vishnu. This is my warning. Lord Vishnu has a club and a chakra to punish non-devotees. Do not risk punishment by attempting to disturb the devotees. Not to speak of you, even Lord Brahma or I were to punish them, Lord Vishnu would punish us. Therefore, do not disturb devotees any further. Hare Krishna. And let's go to the next shloka, 28th shloka.
Hare Krishna, text. Tananayadvam ashato vilakhan mukunda Padaravinda Makarandarashad Ajashram Nishkinchane Paramahamsak Kuler Asanger Jushtadgrihe Niraya Vartamani Baddha Trishnan. Translation: Paramahamsas are exalted persons who have no taste for material enjoyment and who drink the honey of the Lord's lotus feet. My dear servants, bring to me for punishment only persons who are averse to the taste of that honey, who do not associate with Paramahamsas, and who are attached to family life and worldly enjoyment, which form the path to hell.
Hare Krishna. So in the two slokas we have seen what kind of people that Yamadharmaraj is saying not to touch. And here these two slokas we're going to see the kind of people that Yamadharmaraj says his dutas should be interested in, basically. After, anybody wants to read this purport, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mahesh Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
After warning the Yamadutas not to approach the devotees, Yamaraja now indicates who is to be brought before him. He specifically advises the Yamadutas to bring him the materialistic persons who are attached to household life merely for sex. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Yan Maitunadi Grahamedi Sukham Hi Tucham. People are attached to household life for sex only. They are always harassed in many ways by their material engagements, and their only happiness is that after working very hard all day, at night they sleep and indulge in sex. Nidraya priyate naktam.
Yavayena
Vyavayena chava vayaha. At night, materialistic householders sleep or indulge in sex life. Okay, sorry. Diva charhehaya rajan kutumba bharanena va. During the day, they are busy trying to find out where money is, and if they get money, they spend it to maintain the families. Yamaraja specifically advises his servants to bring these persons to him for punishment and not to bring the devotees who always lick the honey at the lotus feet of the Lord, who are equal to everyone and who try to preach Krishna consciousness because of sympathy for all living entities. Devotees are not liable to punishment by Yamaraja, but persons who have no information of Krishna consciousness cannot be protected by their material life of so-called family enjoyment. Srimad Bhagavatam says 2.1.4. Dehapaya kalatridishna atma sainyeshva asatva api resham pramatto nidhanam pashyanna apina pashyati. Such persons complacently believe that their nations, communities, or families can protect them, unaware that all such fallible soldiers will be destroyed in due course of time. In conclusion, one should try to associate with persons who engage in devotional service 24 hours a day.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mahesh Prabhu. So here again, the translation, we see that Yamadharmara is saying, Paramahimsas are exalted people who have no taste for material enjoyment and drink the honey of the Lord's lotus feet. My dear servants, bring to me for punishment only those people, only persons who are averse to the taste of that honey, who do not associate with the Paramahamsas, and who are attached to family life and worldly enjoyment only, with which form the path to the hell. Hare Krishna. Let us read one more shloka and then we conclude the class. In the 29th shloka, he continues, my dear servants, please bring to me only those sinful persons who do not use their tongues to chant the holy name and qualities of Krishna, whose hearts do not remember the lotus feet of Krishna even once, and whose heads do not bow down even once before Lord Krishna. Send me those who do not perform their duties towards Vishnu, which are the only duties in human life. Please bring me all such fools and rascals. Hare Krishna. So if you read this shloka in the other way, please do not touch the people whose tongues chant holy name, or please do not touch the people who have thought of Krishna or Lord Krishna even once in their hearts, and please do not touch those people who have bowed their heads towards Lord Krishna. The rest all we have to bring them basically Smaranam, Sravanam. If you are following the nine Bhakti Marga, then we are keeping Yamadutas and Yamadharmaras away from your life basically. And you are bound to attract Vishnudutas, or at least get a second chance to where you can surrender Vishnudutas and go with Vishnudutas. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji and Matajis. With that, we are concluding the class for today. If there are any questions, because today is also a working day, it's already 8:35 and people have to go back to work. If there are any questions or any comments or anything else, if anybody wants to add, we'll take, we will spend a few more minutes for this messages. Hare Krishna.
No, Prabhu. From my end.
Thank you, Mahesh Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Ayer Prabhu. Sorry, Prabhu. It's a story that we know, the story that we all talk about, Ajamila's story and second chance. I thought we'll at least read through some of the slokas where the discussion between Yamadharmaras and Vishnudutas happens and the importance of chanting basically. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
This second chance topic itself is very hope-giving, and we should also have that determination with which determination and enthusiasm what Ajamila is showing us. So hopefully one day with all your blessing I can also follow it with that determination.
Rama, you're already there, Prabhu. At your age, I don't know what all things we are doing. So
You have that capacity to merge. You are blessed so that you are able to merge your material things along with Krishna consciousness.
As I said, I'm more speaking on an ideal situation rather than personal situation, Prabhu. Giriraj Prabhu, some Praveen Prabhu, then Sumamataji, a lot of people, can give more insight into those things, Prabhu. Sachadev Prabhu, you're saying something, Prabhu?
No, Prabhuji, just a wonderful class, I said. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. If there are no questions or anything, I think we can close the class here today. So sing Nasimharthi. So sing Nasimharthi and we close the class. Namaste Narasimhaya Praladadadayine Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha Shilatantanakanaye Ito Narsimho Parato Narsimho Yato Yamitato Narsimho Bhave Narsimho Hridaye Narsimho Narasimhamade Taranam Prapati Tavatara Kamalavare Naka Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubrinda Keshavadeta Narahari Rupa Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Narasimhadev 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 Jaya Narasimhadev Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय भक्त शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय Let us all pray for Prabhuji's father. Pray for him and do around extra for him from the Ekadasi.
Prabhuji, voice రావట్లేదు.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji Mataji, can you hear me? Sachadev Prabhu?
ఇప్పుడు వినపడుతుంది ప్రభు.
Please let us all pray for Lilananda Prabhuji's father. Let's go extra round if we can. And, on this Ekadasi day, it will definitely.
Prabhuji, your voice is very low. I don't know what happened.
Okay. Probably I'm not speaking very loudly, Prabhu. That's all. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, pleasure.
Let's all pray for Lilananda Prabhuji's father. We'll do at least one round of chanting extra if we can. Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Yes,
Happy
pleasure.
Ekadasi.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dandavat.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Dandavat.
We are very grateful to have your association, Prabhuji. You are really a surrendered soul. The situation that you told yesterday, 12 hours, 12 meetings, and then night you got this opportunity to speak on Bhagavatam, and you immediately picked it up and you gave such a nice class.
Ayyo Rama, there's nothing I did.
How surrendered you are.
I just read out what is there in Bhagavatam, Prabhu. I have not done anything more or anything different. I just read out. Hopefully, I did it right. That's all. That's all I'm praying for. If I've done any mistakes, please excuse me. If there's any mistakes, it's more because of my understanding. And if there's anything good I spoke, it's more because of what the gurus, my gurus have taught me, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you for the service opportunity, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.